Did you know the king of rock and roll was once considered dangerous? Ever wonder why parents feared Elvis Presley would corrupt their children? Ready to discover the shocking truth behind Elvis's most controversial songs? Number 7, Hound Dog, 1956. Was America ready for Elvis's hips? Not in 1956. When Elvis Presley performed Hound Dog on the Milton Berle Show in June 1956, he created a national scandal that would change American entertainment forever. Without his guitar to hide behind, Elvis unleashed his full-body movements during the performance. His gyrating hips and suggestive dancing sent shockwaves through living rooms across America. Television critics were absolutely horrified. Jack Gould of the New York Times called the performance a momentary, unretouched picture of the sort of animalism that should be confined to dives and bordellos. The Catholic Church condemned him. Parents' groups were outraged. Meanwhile, teenage girls screamed with delight. The controversy grew so intense that when Elvis appeared on the Steve Allen Show just weeks later, producers dressed him in a tuxedo with tails and made him sing Hound Dog to an actual basset hound to remove any hint of sexuality. Ed Sullivan, who had previously vowed never to have Elvis on his show, eventually relented, but famously only filmed Elvis from the waist up during his third appearance to hide those dangerous hip movements. The original Hound Dog was recorded by Big Mama Thornton, a powerful black blues singer. Elvis's version transformed the blues number into a rock and roll anthem, but this also sparked accusations of cultural appropriation that would follow Elvis throughout his career. Critics claimed he was stealing black music and making it more palatable for white audiences, a controversy that still sparks debate among music historians today. Despite, or perhaps because of the controversy, Hound Dog became one of Elvis's signature songs, selling over 10 million copies worldwide and spending 11 weeks at #1 on the charts. It represented everything parents feared about rock and roll: unbridled sexuality, racial integration, and teenage rebellion. Number 6, Heartbreak Hotel, 1956. Can a song about suicide become a #1 hit? Elvis proved it could. Heartbreak Hotel marked Elvis's first release with RCA Victor and became his first #1 hit on the Billboard charts. But few fans realized the dark inspiration behind the catchy tune. The song was inspired by a newspaper article about a man who committed suicide by jumping from a hotel window, leaving behind a one-line suicide note that read, "I walk a lonely street." The morbid origins didn't stop there. Writer Tommy Durden saw the story in the Miami Herald, and the article described the anonymous man as destroying all identifying information before his death, leaving police unable to identify him. The song's famous line, "I'm so lonely I could die," took on an entirely new meaning when knowing the tragic Pucko. RC executives worried this song was too dark and different from anything on the radio. They feared its haunting, echo-filled production and blues-influenced style would flop with mainstream audiences. Even Elvis's producer reportedly told him, "That's the saddest song I've ever heard." The controversy extended beyond the lyrics. Cultural critics targeted the song's bluesy style as another example of Elvis appropriating black musical traditions. The song's unconventional structure, with its sparse instrumentation and heavy reverb-raised eyebrows among music industry professionals accustomed to more traditional pop arrangements. Religious groups took issue with the song's depiction of heartbreak and loneliness, claiming it promoted emotional despair rather than faith and resilience. Some ministers even preached against the song, calling it a product of moral decay. Despite all concerns, Heartbreak Hotel spent 7 weeks at #1 and became a defining moment in rock and roll history. The sound was unlike anything most Americans had heard before, with Elvis's voice dripping with emotion over minimal instrumentation. The success of this controversial song established Elvis as a musical force that couldn't be ignored. Number 5 in the Ghetto, 1969. Can a white Southern singer tackle urban poverty and racism? Elvis tried. When Elvis released In the Ghetto in 1969, it marked a dramatic departure from his usual romantic ballads and rock numbers. The song tells the story of a boy born in the Chicago ghetto who turns to crime and is eventually killed, continuing a cycle of poverty and violence. It was one of the few overtly political songs Elvis ever recorded, addressing racial inequality, urban poverty, and social justice. The song's release came during the height of the civil rights movement, just a year after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Many critics questioned whether Elvis, a white man from Mississippi, had any right to sing about the black experience in America's inner cities. The controversy was amplified by the long-standing accusations that Elvis had built his career appropriating black music. Conservative fans were shocked to hear their idol singing about such controversial social issues. Some radio stations in the South refused to play the song, considering its message too progressive and politically charged. Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had always steered him away from political statements, fearing they would alienate portions of his audience. He reportedly tried to convince Elvis not to record the song. Mac Davis, who wrote In the Ghetto, later recalled that many people in the music industry thought the song was too controversial for any major artist to record. Elvis's decision to release it anyway represented a rare moment when he defied his handlers to make a personal artistic statement. Despite the controversy, In the Ghetto became a massive hit, reaching number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and selling over 1 million copies. It represented Elvis's successful comeback to the charts after years focused on movie soundtracks. The song remains one of the most powerful in Elvis's catalog, pathing his ability to convey deep emotion and social consciousness through music. Some civil rights activists actually praised Elvis for using his platform to highlight urban inequality, while others remained skeptical of his motivations. The debate around In the Ghetto exemplifies the complex relationship between Elvis, race, and American culture, a conversation that continues decades after his death. Number 4. A Big Hunk Love, 1959. How did Elvis stay controversial, even while serving in the Army? This song shows the way. When Elvis was drafted into the United States Army in 1958, many industry insiders predicted his career was over. They couldn't have been more wrong. A Big Hunk Love was recorded during Elvis's only recording session while on leave from military service in Germany, and it proved the king hadn't lost his ability to stir up controversy. The song's overtly sexual lyrics raised eyebrows, even by Elvis standards. With lines like, "You're just a natural-born beehive filled with honey," and "I ain't greedy, baby, all I want is all you got," Elvis was pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable in late 1950s pop music. Radio programmers were shocked by the raw sexuality in both the lyrics and Elvis's aggressive vocal delivery. Religious groups condemned the song as immoral and inappropriate, especially coming from a man serving his country in uniform. They argued Elvis should represent American values with more wholesome material. Conservative publications ran editorials questioning whether someone with Elvis's influence should be promoting such suggestive content to impressionable teenagers. The controversy was amplified by rumors about Elvis's personal life in Germany, including his relationship with 14-year-old Priscilla Bowley, who would later become his wife. Though A Big Hunk Love had nothing to do with this relationship, the timing of its release fueled speculation about Elvis's character. The recording session itself sparked controversy within the music industry. Elvis worked with unfamiliar Nashville musicians rather than his usual band, leading to tensions during production. Some music critics claimed the session was rushed, and the song was below Elvis's usual standards, a cash grab engineered by his manager while Elvis was away serving his country. Despite all the controversy, or perhaps because of it, A Big Hunk of Love shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in July 1959, proving that even military service couldn't dampen Elvis's commercial appeal or his ability to provoke public debate. The song demonstrated that Elvis remained a cultural force, even when physically removed from the entertainment scene. Number 3. Peace in the Valley, 1957. Could the devil's music singer record gospel? Religious groups were divided. When Elvis Presley appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show in January 1957 and performed the gospel standard Peace in the Valley, he created one of the most fascinating controversies of his career. The same performer who had been denounced as a danger to America's youth was now singing about finding salvation and peace with God. Many religious leaders were outraged by what they saw as sacrilege. They accused Elvis of mocking sacred music and exploiting religion for commercial gain. Some ministers called him a hypocrite, claiming no one who performed rock and roll widely called the devil's music at the time could sincerely perform gospel songs. One prominent pastor called Elvis's gospel recordings an insult to the true spirit of Christian music. What many critics didn't realize was that Elvis had grown up deeply immersed in gospel music through his attendance at the First Assembly of God Church in Memphis. Gospel quartets had influenced his vocal style as much as blues, or country singers had. For Elvis, recording gospel music wasn't a commercial calculation but a genuine expression of his spiritual side. The controversy extended beyond religious circles. Some rock and roll fans felt betrayed by Elvis's foray into religious music, seeing it as an attempt to gain respectability with mainstream America. Meanwhile, industry executives worried about alienating Elvis's teenage fan base with overtly religious material. Ed Sullivan, who had initially objected to having Elvis on his show due to concerns about his provocative performances, was surprisingly supportive of Elvis's gospel performance. After Peace in the Valley, Sullivan even made a point of telling his audience, "This is a real decent, fine boy." Elvis went on to record an entire EP of gospel songs titled Peace in the Valley, which sold over 1 million copies. He would continue recording gospel music throughout his career, eventually winning 3 Grammy Awards for his spiritual recordings, the only Grammys he received during his lifetime. The controversy around Peace in the Valley highlighted the complex relationship between rock and roll and religion in 1950s America. Elvis stood at the intersection of sacred and secular music, creating controversy by refusing to be confined to either world. Number 2, Suspicious Minds, 1969. Did Elvis steal one of his biggest hits? The controversy behind this classic runs deeper than most fans know. Suspicious Minds became Elvis's 18th and final #1 single in the United States, capping his remarkable comeback in 1969. But behind this triumphant return lurked a bitter controversy that would haunt the song for decades. Mark James, who wrote Suspicious Minds, had recorded his own version of the song in 1968, but it flopped commercially. When producer Chips Moman brought the song to Elvis, he created a version that sounded remarkably similar to James's original arrangement. This sparked accusations that Elvis and his team had simply copied another artist's work rather than creating something original. The controversy exploded when Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, demanded that Elvis's publishing company receive credit and royalties for the song, despite having no hand in writing it. Moman was so furious about this demand that he threatened to halt the entire recording session. The dispute grew so heated that Moman allegedly told Parker, "I'll tell you what, you can either give me my writer's royalties, or you can take this tape and stick it up your using language that can't be printed in family publications." While the songwriting credit issue was eventually resolved in Mark James's favor, Colonel Parker exacted revenge in a different way. The original recording of Suspicious Minds didn't include the infamous fade out and fade in near the end of the song. This strange production choice, where the song seems to end before coming back for another minute, was allegedly added without producer Moman's knowledge as payback for the royalty dispute. Moman was reportedly furious when he heard the released version. Radio programmers initially balked at the song's unusual length, 4:22, and the strange fade-out, fade-in section, considering it too experimental for mainstream airplay. Some stations even created their own edited versions that removed this controversial section. Religious conservatives took issue with the song's theme of distrust between lovers, claiming it undermined the sanctity of marriage with its depiction of a relationship plagued by suspicion. Meanwhile, some music critics accused Elvis of abandoning his rock and roll roots for a more commercial, adult, contemporary sound. Despite the behind-the-scenes drama and various controversies, Suspicious Minds became one of Elvis's signature songs and is widely considered one of the greatest recordings of all time. The controversy surrounding its production has only added to its mystique over the years. Number 1, baby, let's Playhouse, 1955. How Young Was Too Young. Elvis's early hit raised disturbing questions. Before he became a global superstar, Elvis Presley recorded a cover of Arthur Gunter's blues song, Baby, Let's Playhouse, for Sun Records in 1955. The song became Elvis's first entry on the national Billboard country charts, but it also sparked one of the most troubling controversies of his early career. Elvis made a small but significant change to the original lyrics, where Gunter sang, "You may get religion, but don't you be nobody's fool." Elvis changed the line to, "You may have a pink Cadillac, but don't you be nobody's fool." This seemed innocent enough, but another lyric remained unchanged and would raise serious eyebrows. "I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man." Women's groups were horrified by the possessive, threatening nature of these lyrics, especially coming from a 20-year-old man singing about a little girl. They argued the song normalized controlling, potentially violent relationship dynamics. Some radio stations quietly removed the song from their pleatments after receiving complaints from concerned parents. The controversy deepened when critics pointed out the song's similarity to blues numbers with explicitly sexual house-playing references. In African-American blues traditions, playing house was often understood as a euphemism for sexual activity. Many felt Elvis was introducing sexually suggestive material to white teenagers under the guise of innocent rock and roll. Conservative religious groups condemned both the threatening nature of the lyrics and the perceived sexual undertones. Several Southern ministers singled out "Baby, Let's Playhouse" in sermons warning about the dangers of rock and roll music. The controversy surrounding this early recording foreshadowed the much larger scandals that would erupt when Elvis began appearing on television. "Baby, Let's Playhouse" established Elvis as a controversial figure who challenged social norms about relationships, sexuality, and appropriate content for young listeners. Decades later, the song would gain additional notoriety when John Lennon allegedly drew inspiration from the "I'd rather see you dead" line for the Beatles' "Run for Your Life," a song Lennon later disowned as his least favorite Beatles recording due to its misogynistic message. Despite the controversy, or perhaps partially because of it, "Baby, Let's Playhouse" helped launch Elvis's national career and remains a rockabilly classic that toast his ability to transform blues material into something new and exciting, even as it raised troubling questions about the messages in his music. Did Elvis deliberately court controversy throughout his career? Or was he simply a musical revolutionary who couldn't help but challenge the status quo? Will we ever fully understand the complicated legacy of the king of rock and roll?